So we are running a tad bit late, but I guess you had some decent amount of vadas and poha, so you can, survive for some more time, some more minutes, extra minutes that we might need. Because something interesting has happened today, uh, and it is kind of forcing me to, return home tonight. I'll be reaching somewhere around 10:15, 10:30 to Hyderabad. I might as well, play a game of chess with my son. The third video I saw having references to chess. It's like content is king. Yes, I know. We all know it now very well. So now, what has happened is everybody is saying that yes, content is king. Queen, of course, rules the head. We all know that every house has it. And so we need it for success. But what do we do to ensure, to really create the perfect content? We all are aspiring for it, but what do we do to create it? So let us try to get an answer for this ever elusive kind of a scenario, and hear from some of the content champions present among us today. And please do not let your applause stop as I am inviting Gaurav Lalla, co-founder Loose Cannons Content Studio, who will be moderating the panel discussion on how to create the perfect content. I will take the opportunity, please, I will also take the opportunity to invite the other panelists. Paula McGlynn, oh, yep, CEO and founding director, Bhartiya Digital Publications Private Limited. Payal Shah Karwa, founder, content director, The Word Jockey Creative. Sean Graham, MD UAE and Middle East, creator of Inc. Akshata Kamath, head content marketing, Mo Engage. And Rashida Badlawala, content specialist, Al Futtaim Ace. I hope I took that name correctly. Some very interesting names here, folks. Enjoy the session.
Good afternoon, everyone. Someone had told me once that the worst session to do in a conference is the one after lunch. I think the worst one is the one that's just before lunch, keeping everyone from the meal. So we're going to promise and try to keep this as interesting as possible so you forget what's on the menu outside. So quickly jumping into this, this session, as was rightly put by Amit, is about output, because it says and it talks about perfect content. So I think over the last couple of hours, we've all agreed that yes, content is necessary for brands to be successful in this new age. But how do we create it and how do we go about what is the output that is considered as perfect content, both from a brand's perspective, a consumer's perspective, and someone who's an agency, who's in between, and what according to them is perfect content. So what I ideally do and start off from my extreme right is go around this esteemed panel and just quickly, in a couple of minutes each, do tell us what your role is in this journey of creating this perfect content, and what, according to you, 3 or 4 terms or adjectives that comprise, according to you, a perfect piece of content.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Rashida and I come all the way from Dubai. So in my opinion, perfect content is made up of 3 R's. It should be relevant, so you need to create the right content for the right audience on the right platform. It has to be relatable. Your audience needs to identify with it, connect with it. And it also needs to be reliable. Like you can't put out something that's based on fluff or assumptions. It needs to be very accurate. So that, in my opinion, constitutes perfect content.
Hi everyone, I'm Akshita. Content for me, I think we get caught up in all these titles and keywords, anchor text, hyperlinks, images, videos. But at the core, for me, content is, I think, it needs to be relevant. It needs to be consumable. If it's good content and not in the right format or probably too lengthy in a video or it's not consumable, then it doesn't work. So relevant, consumable, and probably adds value. Because if it's not adding value to my current, then it's useless for me. So it should be adding value to the reader.
Thank you. My name's Sean from CreatorUp, and I'd agree with my co-panelists. Have used the kind of be there, be useful, be quick. There's a lot of kind of these acronyms we like to use for be on the right platform for the right audience for the right time. I'd go with the 3 Ws, maybe the win-win-win. Our content to be perfect, what is to create perfect content, is something that's effective, that has an impact, that has a result. And I think it has to be a win for us as the brand, to the messenger at the end of the day, whether it's an NGO or a social impact initiative, whatever it is. A win for the creator, whether it's an influencer or producer, director, or the agencies, something that we want to make. And then obviously, the big win is for the audience. If it's something that they like, enjoy, it's information they want or need, then they'll give us their time, their attention, their world, and their subscribes and likes and everything like that. So create a true win-win-win scenario so that everyone's happy.
Thanks. So at the risk of being thrown out of the panel, I'm going to be a little disagreeing to this concept of perfect content, because according to me, perfect content is a myth. I feel that whenever you create a piece of content and you go back and look at it, you will feel that, I could have done this better. I could have said this better. It could have been a better photo. It could have been a better piece of text. But having said that, we all believe in myths, right? We believe in stories. We believe that, yes, there is a concept called perfect content somewhere, and we need to reach out there. Because if we start believing that, yes, this is the perfect piece of content, we'll stop aspiring. We'll become very content with our content. We will not try to be better. So according to me, perfect content doesn't exist.
Hi, I'm Paula. Probably my company might not be so well known, but we have a brand called Bharipa. We're a Marathi language content brand based out of Mumbai and Pune. And we do a lot of work with sponsors, and we create our own content and market it ourselves. So I would say that as a content creator, one of the things that drove us towards creating our own content was, having a vision, which is very important. Whether you can get the brand on board with that vision is another thing. But yeah, similar to what Sean was saying, you have to have a win-win-win. So, you have to have the unique value for each player involved, whether it be the creator, the brand, or the audience. But I think at the end of the day, definitely one of the most important things to take home is you need to get a return audience after your content has been consumed. You want to make sure that your viewers come back to see more.
So we've spoken about relevance, we've spoken about right kind of format, also the idea that this panel may not need to exist considering there is no perfect content, but let's try and decode this a little more. We've been hearing, and in fact, Vishal just spoke about it as well, that there is a plethora of content formats, and it's very confusing as to what works for what kind of use case or which brand. I want to throw it up to the panel, and between videos and images and live broadcasts or memes and GIFs, and the list is endless. Do you see any particular kind of content working for a particular kind of purpose in the experience that you guys have done? And any best practices or examples that you've seen of a particular type of content solving a particular type of communication problem?
I'd like to answer that.
Sure, please go ahead.
The brand that I work for, Ace Hardware, is basically a hardware brand. And we deal in a lot of DIY products, drills, products like power tools and things like that. So we wanted to put out a piece to make it more easier to use these products, because people think it's only for contractors and not for the layman. So we thought of putting out a DIY project on how to make a chalkboard tray using the products that are available in our store. And we realized that when we're doing a step-by-step written article, it doesn't really come across as interesting or creative or inspiring. So we put it out in a video format, and it was an instant hit. Like, we had people on social media getting back to us, posting pictures of what they made, how they made, suggestions on how it could be better. So I feel that was like a good push to our products that were lying in stock, and it also made it more interactive for the brand to, have a good social media presence. So I feel videos and even photos and images are really shareable. So I think that's what makes it a really good format.
So videos and the how-to for an average person sort of use case works perfectly. Any other examples, anybody else?
So I would like to add to what she said. I think videos work well, images work well. They work even better when there's a real person and not a stock image. So we tried this in my current company, MoEngage, which is a marketing automation platform. So if there's a blog and there's a stock image that we're using, the tendency is to use the same thing across social. But when we repost the same blog with probably the right author's photograph and a small quote or a short teaser video with the author, it works really well. We get a lot more views, a lot more people engage with that versus a stock image. So I think a real person.
So humanize the content that you're putting out in
Yeah.
any form
Yeah.
and keep it authentic and real to
Yeah.
your own brand.
Yeah.
Any others?
Yeah, I would say that adding on to that is one thing which, as a content creator, these platforms keep driving home for you every single time you meet with them for these creator days and whatnot is this term called hygiene. And it's something that anybody who has their own platform, whether it be your Facebook page or your Instagram, that you need to sort of maintain for each and every platform that you have. And as a creator, we started off making videos, and our schedule for our videos is one every 2 weeks. And when someone says you need to put out daily content to make an impact, it's not possible for us to do that with these high quality videos, which is really what our end game is. That's our premium content for our fans. But coming up with things like memes and GIFs, that is stuff which is very easy to churn out if you get a creative team behind it. We have our meme team. It's a WhatsApp group, and every day we have our creators sending out relevant memes depending on the daily news, and those get curated and put up in a certain schedule. And I think that is something very important to keep your audience engaged with whatever it is you're doing.
So use memes and GIFs to sort of engage on a daily basis instead of trying to achieve that zenith of content creation every time is something you would recommend. I'm going to borrow that term meme team at some point in time. Anybody else?
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. I was going to. Okay. So there are two examples I'm going to cite. One is we create a lot of B2B content for LinkedIn and LinkedIn Talent Solutions. So if anyone from LinkedIn over here?
You're all on LinkedIn if that helps.
So you all must have noticed for LinkedIn that they do promote a lot of content marketing, a lot of B2B content to be created. So one of the things that they do is they have these closed room discussions with, I'm talking about Talent Solutions. So one of the TG is the head of HR and the head of HR, whatever, yeah. So what they did was they create live sessions with these 7 or 8 people, closed room discussion, where they create live content. They have a moderator, they have a discussion like this, and they talk about the trends, for example, in HR, or what is the future of HR, or what is it about employee engagement. And we help them actually capture all that content, the key points, whatever the speakers were talking. And we convert it into a coffee table book for them, which again, they would hand it out to the relevant people, not just these 7 or 8 people, but there are like, thousands of HR professionals out there whom they are targeting. So that's their target market. So that's one example I would like to cite, that coffee table books, e-books, anything which is research-oriented or which has a lot of insights work very well with professionals. The other example is the complete end of the spectrum. So we do a lot of varied kind of content, including wedding content, right? We do a lot of content for events and experiential companies. So there was a wedding client, and you know how wedding in India, the big fat Indian wedding, and they wouldn't mind spending lakhs just to be a little different. So there was this client, and they were flying everyone to Mauritius, and they said that they were actually buying out an entire flight, and they were flying the entire Bharat out there. And they said that, there is something called In-Flight magazine, which is usually very boring. You have these ads, and you have these stories which are not very interesting. It's too commercial. So what is it that we can do which is different in terms of content and keeping them engaged? So we said that while the Bharat is going out there and while the people are on that 4-5 hour flight, why don't we create a comic book which is about the Dulha and the Dulhan, which talks about the story and how they met, which talks about what are the events that are going to happen, what can they expect. They had a Shankar Esa and Loy coming and performing over there, so they said that let the people know about it. So we actually created a 15-page comic book, right from scratch, right from the ideation, from the stories, from the illustrations, and putting it all together and publishing it and printing it. And we won an award also for that because it is very different from what usually a wedding client would do. So those are some 2 examples I wanted to give.
So Payal, both of these are not the format we've been discussing thus far, which is an offline sort of approach to content.
Yes.
In the way that you just specified. And that's very interesting because we get blinded by this one medium because it's the talk of the town, whereas something as real as that can also appeal to a much smaller audience, which is rather difficult to find in a large pool of the online world. Sean, you had some.
Yeah, I'm going to be very biased here just because of the nature of what we do, but I think video is obviously, one of the many forms of content we have, everything from the kind of, obviously the online, offline. But with video now, it doesn't always have to be our high-end video. It compromises everything from our WhatsApp stories to our Instagram stories to, I would even put GIFs and cinemagraphs in the video column. It can be, a Netflix series, an entire kind of digital series, a YouTube series. It's live events, it's live streaming on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, it's LinkedIn videos. Ian Bremmer from World Economic Forum, he's an influencer by doing little vlogs, and it's just cell phone footage. So the uses of video, I think, are most impactful because of the way it engages the brain differently. We respond to information differently than from stories. So if you have a good story communicated through video, even if it's just a highlight section on your Instagram, you not only engage people's brains differently, but you get their attention, your time, our most valuable resource. We can scroll through a lot of stuff, but video makes you stop. Video with storytelling makes you stop and engage and consider and kind of just experience it, not so much, again, just as information, but as something that you're going to internalize. And so that's why, again, it's everything from 360 and VR content and AR content and taking books and putting AR characters on there. This is, I feel, the way we can start to leverage video again because it gives us attentive reach, not just eyeballs and general reach.
Interesting. And now that we've all sort of agreed to different forms working for different kinds of purposes, I think this is a very interesting question, which I'm personally very excited to know more about. The whole process of branded content, and you all must have experienced it at some point in time, has multiple stakeholders involved in it. And if you are in the race or the dream to create perfect content, having all of them sort of hand in glove with the idea of what you want to achieve is crucial. I want to understand from the panel here as to what is it that each stakeholder sort of wants to look at in this perfect piece of content, and how do you marry these varied sort of desires from that piece of content into a successful piece? So everyone.
I'll start. I would say of all the people that matter in this spectrum, the consumer of the content is first. Because we're in this world where we get to choose when and where to watch things, we always have to think consumer first. And this is why I love kind of the examples even that Vishal was talking about earlier from Red Bull. Red Bull is a content company that happens to also have a sports drink. They're always thinking about their consumers first. That's why the kind of events and the initiatives they have are interesting to the people they want to appeal to. They're interesting to the celebrity sports stars they would want to bring in. And again, to the people that aspire to be awake and energized and active and creative, because they've always been very much customer first. So whenever we're creating branded content, it can be very easy to fall into that trap of, okay, I have this campaign objective, I want to bring this influencer because they have a bunch of followers, and then maybe that'll get me some likes. but it should be more thinking about who do I want to talk to? What are they into? What are they watching? What do they like? What could be interesting to them that they don't know about it? Who could connect me to that? So work backwards then if you want to get into the influencer and kind of that space in terms of who's actually reaching them on the right platforms. And then once I've understood that, then I can decide what is the content that would work on that platform to reach that audience through that influencer at that moment where I want them to know something, to buy something, to go to something, or to try something, and, or maybe just repeat the process. So start with the consumer and then work backwards rather than being brand first, I think.
Rashida, you do this as a brand custodian. Does it get difficult to always keep the consumer at the center of this content?
Yeah, actually, from a retail brand perspective, you know, we when we put out content over there, we have to involve a lot of stakeholders within the brand, within the organization. I'll give you an example, like because Christmas is coming up, and we sell a lot of Christmas items, right from trees to decorations and all the works. So when we put out a content where we're promoting our Christmas collection, we need to get the buying team involved where they're giving us a range of options, right from low price to premium. We need to get the merchandisers to make sure it's listed on the website in an easy to find manner. We need to get the order fulfillment customer service team to make sure we're not giving out any wrong information, any false delivery promises to the customer. So in our organization, we have this rule of customer centricity. So we have to follow that, making it easy for the customer to find what they want, get it where they want, pay in a manner that they would prefer paying. So all these things, you know, are involved in putting together the right piece of content for the customer. So I think it is a team building thing where you have to have everybody involved.
And Akshita, in a B2B business, which is like Mowengage, do you find it difficult to sort of navigate this? Why do we need content at all? Sort of question that may crop up. Is there something like that that you have to face and challenge yourself?
No, I think why do we need content is not there now. That's, I think, a couple of years back. So now companies have realized that we need content. But yeah, sometimes companies do not want to risk or take something that is very, very different from what the competitors or everybody else in the industry is doing. So that could be a challenge at times. But I think the way to sort of win over here is to sort of, A, talk about the customer, and if you have a strong story on how this is going to resonate with the customer, B, how does this tie into your brand and its ethos and its values. So if you make that connect, I think you can win over.
Paula, you had mentioned that you guys follow a very different approach, and that's also over a period of learning, where you take the risk first with respect to what kind of content to make, and then a brand sort of comes on board and piggybacks on the success that you may garner. How does that work, and how do we make sure that what we've created eventually is in sync, hopefully for a brand to come on board?
I guess I could tell you about the journey of how we landed up starting our own content creation company and eventually getting there, because we came from two very different perspectives coming together. The three founders of the company were all creators, you know, people who came from film and theater backgrounds, and we had an idea, you know, let's start a production company, and the first sort of successful work that we got, which, you know, led to further work, was when we started working with digital content for brands. And our first, you know, piece was a portfolio piece which we had made for Parle-G, because we wanted, you know, to do like a, you know, UGC kind of a thing, user-generated content. And this was in 2013. It went viral in its own little, you know, compact way back then in 2013. And the interesting thing was that, you know, we had a brand come forward towards us who was a very small perfume company based in Chembur, which is a suburb of Mumbai, for those of you who are not from here. And this perfume company said, you know, we want to do some kick-ass stuff. They gave us references of Red Bull videos, and they said, we want to do a web series. And we were like, awesome, you know, this is exactly what we want to do. Let's do a branded web series. So we made a 5-episode web series for them. Each episode was 3 minutes long. And we had some constraints, of course, like it had to be shot in their office and, you know, very low budget and whatnot. But, you know, as creators and starting off with the company, we were happy to do it for almost nothing. And that web series was, good in its own way, but it failed for the brand because they insisted on keeping it up on their own platform. They didn't work with any influencers. And it wasn't able to reach out to the audience that could have really benefited from watching that series and potentially, converted and become buyers of that product. And I think it's very important, for brands who, want to create content, you have to also have an understanding that sometimes making something for your own YouTube channel is not the best idea. If you're not planning to continuously be putting content out there, it doesn't make sense. If you're gonna make a web series for your perfume company and you're just gonna stop at 5 episodes, better to put it on an influencer platform or put it on a premium platform rather than trying to hold on to it yourself. So there's always gonna be like a cost-benefit relationship between these things. And eventually, after working, we worked with many Unilever brands and stuff, and we sort of hit a wall where we said, we, as creators, my partners are Maharashtrian, we felt that there is a big gap happening, and not just between brands and media, but between, traditional media companies, like TV channels and movie makers. And we felt that, the young generation of Maharashtrians today are not getting the content that they want in their own language. They're waking up at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning to watch their 1-hour Game of Thrones episode, but when they turn on the TV at home, they're not getting anything that they can relate to. And that was when the idea hit that, let's create a Marathi content brand, and through that, we'll be able to, solve the problems of our advertisers, these brands who wanna come and reach out to audiences, but they don't want to necessarily engage in your Favicol YouTube channel, which is creating all sorts of wonderful content for all kinds of audiences. Let's go with niche, and it's a nice way for people to meet in the middle if you don't maybe want to build out that brand studio, which we're talking about. And that's sort of where we landed up. And so finding that balance between the two and understanding, the setbacks and the benefits of strategic partnerships within content making is really important.
Interesting. Payal, you have any stories of horror or love to share with the audience of how you have engaged with brands probably who did not understand how this process actually takes place?
I have a point of view on this. I might not have a story, but I definitely want to share something on this, that when you say that the marriage of branded content, it's definitely a marriage, because on one hand, you're getting a brand which has a lot of restrictions and lots of do's and don'ts, and on the other hand, you have content which is all about free storytelling. So it's like the coming together of two states, in the north and the south, and then getting married is very, very difficult. And that fine balance that an agency or a brand creator or a content creator has to strike, it's like walking the tightrope. I feel that the first step in creating any branded content, what Sean also rightly said, is the customer. Think about the customer. But I don't know how many brands are really doing that, because brands are so consumed by making viral videos and videos which people will want to look at and aspire or get emotional. I think they forget that there's a lot of functional content also which is missing in the content economy. When I say functional content means, there's a lot of educational content which is missing, which a brand or a product can provide. Okay, to give a very simple example, a microwave, all right? We are a gas and chula culture, right? Microwave is very Western and very new. When the microwave made their way or tried to make their way in the Indian kitchen, I'm sure a lot of homemakers or people who cook didn't know the optimal use of a microwave, and I'm sure a lot of us still don't know what a microwave can do. But I don't see any microwave brand actually taking the effort of making that kind of content which will add value to the homemaker. Not a single video which tells me what a microwave can do or how that microwave can be operated. Yesterday, incidentally, I was just looking at a Facebook timeline, and there is a channel called Blossoms, and they have these 5-minute DIY videos. And very interesting and very crisp and very fast videos which tell you different things, like things you didn't know what you can do with food, things you didn't know what you can do with a microwave. And for example, if your jeans get wet, you put it in a microwave, it can dry in 5 minutes. You can make a cupcake in a cup, and things like that, which I would never know a microwave would do. So I was wondering, why isn't it that a brand is not creating this kind of content? Why is it coming from a simple content creator? Why is it that the brand is not associated with it? So we are so, as I said, passionate about creating just emotional videos that we forget that there is another aspect to content creation, which is adding value. Someone mentioned, Sean mentioned, I think, about adding value to the customer. And the value is not just about beautiful videos which will make me cry at the end of the 30 seconds. There's much more we can do with content.
Very interesting. So we've done the what, we've done the who. Let's come to the how. And I think we've been hearing throughout the morning about narrative and storytelling and all of that being a part of content creation for brands. We live in a generation which has coincidentally come up with two terminologies which are so contrasting to each other that we have low attention spans, but we binge watch as a consumer base. So in such a complex consumer time, how does storytelling even take place, and how does that play a role in perfect content?
I use this example a lot, the same one. We talk about we have an 8-second attention span, less than a goldfish, but we'll still give Netflix 12 hours of our time, right? And it is that place where we have such a different variety of choices of what to engage with. And I feel, just kind of taking a step back, it all comes down to relationships at the end of the day. As cheesy as it sounds, everything in advertising and marketing and content creation is really about establishing relationships and rapport. So the reason we wake up at 9 a.m. to watch our Game of Thrones is because we have very strong relationships with these characters and with that show. I'm not saying it's a good relationship, I'm just saying it's a very strong relationship. So in the same sense, we want to be able to, when it comes to the how, what kind of content do we create, how much time and energy do we put into this or that, we just want to start breaking things down, and we can take a lot of good examples from kind of the old editorial framework of a magazine. We have our cover story, our big thing that we talk about, our big expensive coordinated media push, our hero content at the end of the day, right? We do this a couple times a year, it's the tentpole stuff. And this might be, for a content creator, 3 web series I'm doing a year, or as a brand, it's my big holiday campaigns and the big ads that I'm putting out around that. But no one subscribes to a magazine just because of the one cover story. They subscribe to the magazine because of the regular content they're producing on a monthly, weekly, quarterly basis, whatever happens to be. And that's why we subscribe to the channels we love, because we want to see what they're doing on a regular basis. Not just because of that one flashy video, not just because of the one ad, not because of the Coca-Cola ad, but because maybe they've made an interesting series. So the hub content for Variety is entertainment topics. For Tractor Pull, it's everything in the tractor world. It's not just the one cover story about that, the new wheel coming out. And then the last bit is kind of the long tail content that we often forget about, is the help or hygiene, the editorial framework again, is where you're just giving back to the audience. Here's the tips and tricks. Here's the how-to. What do you want to know? It's a live video or it's an Ask Me Anything, where you can actually get the consumer to directly talk with you. And also thinking beyond, again, just the video content, the chat bots, the kind of AI tools we have now to be able to learn and engage with our audience and actually give back to them. So it's a way to help us plan out our time and energy and our strategy, but also create kind of a consistent cycle of content for our consumers to engage with us and really establish that relationship. And I think the last part of it, again, is just not forgetting the fact that we can always ask people now. It's no longer the old days where we really couldn't talk to our consumers or our stakeholders. We can directly go to our consumers, not only ask them to generate content for us, but ask them what they want to see, what they care about, and that itself is content that builds on that relationship and generates that trust.
Just to add in, everything you say is absolutely correct, and just to put it in a slightly different lens, the way that I look at it is what is the intention of the audience when they're going on the platform that you're engaging with them on? So when you're going on Instagram, your intention is usually, up until recently because of the stories, is to, consume aesthetic-looking images and maybe some vloggers and stuff. Or Facebook, the intention is to go and get updates. It's usually not to, watch an advertisement. And that's, the big thing that, an advertisement always has to tackle is, you're interrupting whatever that person was doing. And the only probably place where I can say I intentionally watch an advertisement is, say, if I'm playing a mobile game and I want to get an extra life, so I'll watch the advertisement. And I'll probably just press play and I'll keep it down over there so I don't have to look at it. So
That's another $1 of advertising wasted.
yes. So I think that probably, a very effective way to always make sure that if you're looking to target your consumers is you need to make sure that if they're not seeking you out for your content, then you need to find other people whom they are seeking out. The intention to go to Netflix is to binge watch. The intention to go to YouTube is to, maybe watch something while you're having breakfast. And that's your difference, right? It's that difference in consumption pattern based on the platform. So if I want to be a brand and I want to integrate with somebody, then I'm going to say I'll sponsor and integrate with a video that the creator is making. And for the creator, you have to say, my audience is going to come and watch my content, and you have the privilege of being integrated into that seamlessly so that they don't even realize that they're being advertised to. And that, I think, is very important. So, from a brand perspective and from a creator perspective, you always need to keep in mind that each platform plays its different role, and to make sure that's a great way to, figure out how you're going to distribute your content.
I would like to add a little bit to that as well. I think along with the channels, what does my brand stand for? I might want to talk about a book because probably I'm an e-commerce platform and we sell a lot of books. But maybe buyers perceive me as a fashion brand, so they probably want to buy apparels. So I need to know what my buyer is interested in, what are they perceiving me as, and I think that's when the content connects. Otherwise, that disconnect is always going to be there.
So adding on to the storytelling part, what Paula and Sean both spoke, when you're storytelling from the viewpoint of a brand, you also need to be consistent. Like, consistency is key. So when you're creating webisodes, I think what you said about the perfume brand is that they stopped with that web series, which is why they failed. They should have probably advertised it more or put it on different platforms. So when you create a series of different series, have it coming in at regular intervals. So initially, your customers will just be visitors. They'll not really buy from you. But once they start coming back to view more of your content, they will eventually convert and probably become loyal customers in the long run. So I think consistency is really important when it comes to storytelling for content.
I think we'd try and wrap this session with starting from Paula for one watch out that you would advise the audience sitting here to keep in mind when they sit down on that table to say, okay, I'm going to start producing content, or this is the content that will speak about my brand. One big watch out.
Considering everybody here is probably from a marketing background, then I would say the big watch out is make sure that your influencer is relevant to the people you want to target, the people who you're working with. You don't want to, if you are a cooking brand, you're not going to go and team up with an influencer who does, road trips on their motorcycle, unless you specifically want to get on that, cooking on the road niche. So make sure that you're very focused on who you pick as an influencer.
I think the genesis of any piece of content is the writer. So whether you have an agency on board, whether you have whoever on board, all the experts, I think the writer is the one who's going to crack the content for you, or who's going to bring all the ideas together and make sure that the story is told well. So please do not look for cheap, economical, 50 paise per word writers out there, because the industry has never been fair to writers. The industry has never been fair to writers, whether it's a film industry. Today, the OTT platform is suffering because of dearth of good writers. There are good writers. We just need to find the right ones, good ones, and train them for your medium. So yes, please watch out for good writers if you want to make your, and pay them well if you want to
And
make
when you
it
find them, keep them. Treasure them, they're rare.
Thank you so much for agreeing with me on this.
The one word I would want to bring up is ecosystem. this comes from kind of our experience. We work with YouTube globally, training a lot of their brands and agencies on their behalf, training their internal employees, as well as kind of their influencers on how to work with brands and how to do live events and merchandising, communities and schools and universities, all on kind of digital media skills. And that's the context of the ecosystem we all work in, right? We all here work with platforms and brands and agencies or our agencies or content creators, and that itself is an ecosystem. It's the same way that we should think about how to present our brand or the brands we work with to our consumers, how to create an ecosystem of content for them to engage with. Think about the history of Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has turned a diabetes drink into happiness, and that is the ecosystem they've created for us. So it can turn even one of the worst things into something very nice and fluffy that we'll always love and forever. So build an ecosystem for people to live in, and then that's the best way for them to constantly engage with
Sean,
you.
I'm going to put you on the spotlight once again. I'm specifically looking for a no, something that we should not look at when we get into. So the ecosystem creation is something that we've discussed. I think for the audience here, it's very easy to come across a lot of best practices. I think there are some key, like for example,
okay.
Paula mentioned about right influencer. Don't go for the biggest one, go for the right one. Or what Payal said about get the right writer. Something on those lines from your experience would really help the audience.
I would say forget about me. Stop talking about ourselves. Literally just like stop talking about yourself 9 times out of 10. Talk about someone else or something else going on around you. You're going to be a lot better off in getting people to interact. Just stop talking about yourself.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you.
I think long term, think evergreen, because most of the times we are stuck with this campaign, this month, this quarter, generating leads. So look at content and its longevity, because content takes a lot of time. Good content, perfect content takes a lot of time and effort and money. So when you're investing all of that, make sure it is a long-term piece of content.
I would just like to add on to what Paula said in terms of influencer marketing. So influencer marketing is big in Dubai. I am myself a blogger in Dubai. So one thing to watch out for is fake influencers. Like a lot of people get into blogging just for the free stuff. So, you know, you kind of have to keep following up, like PR, as a PR company, you have to keep following up with them. Have you still posted on the blog? Have you still posted on Instagram and things like that? When you see their content, you'll realize that is it really generating any return for you? It's not just in terms of conversion, but even in terms of engagement, recall. If you're not getting that, then it's probably not right to go with that particular person. And I think that's one of the very important things for content companies.
Fabulous. I think I'm going to open the floor for questions. You have a large set of people here who you can ask any questions to. Else, we are done from the dais. Are we done on time? Okay. Sorry. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the panel.